Good afternoon. This is Carol Kennedy with ApplicantStack. We'd like to thank you for joining our webinar this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and just give everyone a couple of minutes to finish dialing in, and then we'll be sure to come back and we'll get started. All right, we are just a couple of minutes past, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you again, everyone, for joining our Recruit webinar today. I am joined today by my colleague, Ellen Benzine. She's an account manager with ApplicantStack Swipe Clock, as am I, account manager. Today, our agenda, we are going to go ahead and do a start to finish review of our Recruit applicant tracking system. That will be an overview of the system. And we also have a couple of things that we would like to focus on. So for example, the need for efficiency and automation in the hiring process and how you can apply that to our system. So for example, we have some candidate search options available. We also have some scoring options available to help you be more efficient in your candidate review process. In doing research, I did include a link to an Indeed article, Indeed being one of our partners, about recruiting trends in 2024, what they're seeing, and that should be dropped in the chat for you if it hasn't already been. And then once we've reviewed the system, we'll move on to a Q&A session. Those can be anything related to ApplicantStack, can be Recruit, can be Onboard. It doesn't have to be specific to those topics. So why is it important to be efficient in your hiring process? A lot of it's just a matter of recruiting volume. So for example, the average corporate job receives about 250 applications. According to the Society for Human Resource Management, in-house recruiters can have requisition loads spanning between anywhere from single-digit numbers to well over 100 jobs that they are recruiting for. So I do have a background in HR and recruiting, and I've definitely seen that. So there can be quite a few jobs that your recruiters are working through. And as we're all aware, applicants may or may not be a fit. So you may be spending a lot of time reviewing candidates that are not a fit for your job. And that can be somewhat frustrating. Time is also of the essence. According to Indeed, there are 10 million job openings in the US, but only 6 million workers to fill those jobs. And this type of labor market speed is critical. Companies must identify candidates quickly and extend offers before competitors do. We've probably all been there when we get to the finish line and go to extend an offer, but the candidate has an offer from another company that they've already accepted. And unfortunately, you're back to square one. That's not fun. There are many things we can do in the hiring process to make those more efficient. A lot of times there are some inefficiencies built into the process, but we are here to help you with that. So a couple of things we're going to focus on today are candidate search options. So I always had it drilled into me as a recruiter. The first thing you do before you go out and look for candidates is to search your candidate database. So maybe you have a candidate that had applied, interviewed in the past, maybe something had changed at the time, but they may be interested now. You could potentially save yourself time in that search, effort, and advertising dollars. If you can find somebody perhaps that went through the process before, maybe reach out to them, see if they might still be interested. So we have a couple of different places for you to do that we'll touch on. And we've got a quick little screenshot here for you. At the top of your ApplicantStack page, there is a quick candidate search. So maybe you remember somebody from the past. You can go in and easily find their profile in the system. And we have some more complex search capabilities on your candidate tab available for you. So you can, for example, search for a certain skill set, maybe by zip code within your area, or there's a number of different criteria that are customizable that you can use to search your database for those candidates. From there, search results will be returned. You can send out an email, maybe to see if they are interested. You can also save those search criteria for the future, and we'll be sure to touch on those in just a bit. And then we have ApplicantStack scoring capabilities. So you can reduce the number of resumes for review and focus on your best fit candidates. That can be based off of answers to questionnaires that you have or phrases in the resume that you are looking for. You can either assign point values or knockout or KO values. So we'll see that in the system just a little bit, but as a quick screenshot here, you can see we have candidates with a point score assigned to them, and then KO means they answered a question that is knocking them out of consideration. We do want to mention our upcoming events. We have an Ask Me Anything session taking place on October 29th regarding seasonal hiring. And again, on November 7th, we'll have an onboard webinar, and that will be surrounding optimizing forms in the system. Okay, we have some options for you to scan to register, or on your home page in the upper left in the announcement section. We'll point that out, but you'll be able to register there as well. We'd love to see you there. And with that, we'll hop into the system and do an overview. We're not going to go into 100% of everything, but we want to give you a good refresher, or perhaps this is your first time seeing the system, overview of ApplicantStack Recruit. So I have everyone started off on our homepage. And before I forget, I did want to mention up in the upper right, here is that quick search candidates, where you can simply type in a name and that will go ahead and pull up that candidate profile, and you can select it quickly and easily from this search box here. And also I wanted to mention you are able to open your job board from the home page, and that is going to allow you to see what your candidate will see. So we can click on a job and see our application process, our branding, our formatting, just to make sure that everything is in place. And you can do a double check just to make sure everything is being asked that needs to be asked for that particular job. Okay, back to the home page. We mentioned the announcement section. Our upcoming webinars should be listed here. Feel free to register for those. We'd love to see you. We have a pipeline summary that is an overall snapshot or overview of your recruiting process, how many candidates are in each stage of your process. Those stages are customizable, and we have a shortcut in that you can click on this hyperlink number here and it will bring you into those 5 applicants that are in the new stage for that accounting manager job. That's a little bit of a shortcut for you. We have a reminder for any tasks or events that you've been assigned to. So perhaps you have a reminder to phone screen a candidate, interview a candidate, maybe check a background check. That will appear in your reminder section up in the upper right. And one more thing I'd like to point out is this orange and white question mark in the upper right. That is available for you to search our help center. If you have a quick question on how to do something in the system, chances are we have either an article with screenshots or video available for you in our knowledge base. And you can also ask a question that will get you in touch either with our technical support team or your account manager. Should you have a question or you need some help, it will be routed to the appropriate individual from there. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and hop over to our jobs section. And we'll be sure to touch upon scoring as we walk through creating a job, but you can see we have a table here with some basic information, the job title, where is that job posted, what stage is it in, when was it created, when was it last modified, and so forth. Let's go ahead and click on Create Job and walk you through, since that's pretty important. You'll have an option to start with a blank form, or you can start from a template if you have that in your library. You will be prompted to submit some tentative information. This is fully customizable. Anything with an asterisk will be required. So perhaps you want to populate your job title. What department is that located in? Where is that job located? Is it full-time or part-time? And so forth. Coming down, you would populate your job description. We've got some options for formatting available. You would assign your job owner, who is your recruiter, typically, or HR user would be your job owner. Who is your hiring manager for that job? Hiring managers have to be assigned to be able to see the candidates and the associated job information. Again, they can only see the candidates and jobs specifically assigned to them, is a different way to say that. You'll be prompted to select the workflow that the job and the application will go through. From there, let's go ahead and come into a sample job. It's pretty intuitive. You just want to follow these tabs across. So the summary tab has the information we would have just theoretically entered. Coming over to listing, you'll have an option to make any quick edits if something doesn't look correct. You can also preview and again see what your candidate will see. Just do a double check, make sure your bullets are lined up and so forth before you go live with that. Coming over to questions, we can ask pre-screening questions of our applicants. I've got an employment application assigned, included from the system settings, so that it's going to automatically attach to every job that I create. You don't have to do that, but that is an option for you. We have some position-specific questions that we've added. So for example, for an accounting manager, maybe we need to know, does that individual have a degree? How many years of experience they have? You are able to set those up as a new questionnaire. You can add from library. If you have a template set up, you can simply pull that in. We have edit attachments available. That will give you up to 5 fields for applicants to attach some documentation. Maybe you're looking for a writing sample, a certification, something of that sort. You can simply prompt them to add that information. And again, here is that preview button. So we can pull that all together. We can see what's being required of the candidate. Anything with an asterisk is required. So we have contact information. You can add questions. It's very flexible. When are you available to start? What is your LinkedIn profile address? Are you able to travel? Do you speak any additional languages? So that's just going to provide a final check for you. Resume and cover letter right now are optional. We have Dropbox if your candidate's on a mobile device so they can find their resume. Here is that employment application. We'll have an option to add schools if we need to, add employer, references. We have an authorization section. And here are those position-specific questions that we mentioned. For myself, I always like to double check before I go live with anything. Coming over to scoring. So we did mention this is a way to help your recruiter sort of filter through the applicants that are coming in. We can simply click on Create Rule, and we can pull or base that off of our questionnaires or phrases in the resume that we are looking for. So we have the option to put in a phrase that will trigger the rule, and we can assign point values or make that a KO. Let me back it up. Let me go back to Create Rule, and let's go to Questionnaire. So let's go to those accounting manager questions. So let's say a degree is required, and the candidate says, no, they don't have one. That can provide a KO. If they do have one, maybe we give them 10 points. Maybe we want to give increasing point values for increasing level of experience up to a point. Maybe we don't want somebody who's incredibly senior. So it's pretty flexible to build that out. And then once we get to the candidate screen, we'll see what that looks like. That will give you that little pinkish alert with the KO, or it will give them a point value once that is calculated. All right, we'll back it up just a little bit. Want to mention just a couple more things. If we come over to launch, this is where you are posting your job out. So if you're using premium texting, we'll have an option for you to set up text to apply, where candidates can text a code word to a number. They'll get a link to your application. Premium texting is an additional cost. If you're interested, please let us know. We're happy to walk you through that. We have multiple options for posting your job. Public job board is tied to your website. So you can post directly to your website. Candidates can apply there. We have an internal job board. So that will give you a link. You can put that either, I've seen, in an email blast or on a company intranet to give your current employees an option to apply. You can even give them, for example, a 5-day head start before that goes public. You do have options to sponsor your job on Indeed. That will give it additional visibility. It will provide some predictive guesses surrounding, for this budget, you should see this many candidates come in. So again, that would be an additional cost, but you get additional visibility on Indeed. Coming down, these options with the view details would require a separate paid subscription or posting inventory to post to. Job Target has 25,000 plus sites to post to. Some are free, but there is a minimal delivery fee involved. Others are paid postings. It will be very transparent as you go through that. Career Builder, Dice, Monster, ZipRecruiter, you would need a separate paid subscription or inventory to post there. These options here in the middle, Google for Jobs, LinkedIn Limited, and Indeed Organic, are free to post to. Indeed Organic, Indeed will make the determination if you are able to use organic postings or if you would be required to use sponsored or paid postings. So again, that's an Indeed determination. If you have any further questions surrounding that, please let us know. We'll do our best to help you with that. Social media sites, Twitter, LinkedIn, you can go ahead and post your job out as a social media posting. And then we have the manual posting links at the bottom. So if you have a site that you don't see above, Craigslist seems to be a popular one. That will create a unique URL for you here. You can include that in your posting to either bring your candidate to the job listing page, or this link will bring them to the online application for that job. That will track where that candidate came from. So this is a unique address here. They'll come back into ApplicantStack and you'll be able to see where the candidate found your job. Okay, so that is our job posting process. With that, you should have candidates coming into the system. So I'll go ahead and bring everyone over to our candidates tab. So going back to our topic for today, we do want to talk about that search capability. So I would always come in and search my current candidate database before I did anything posting wise. So you can see this is a little bit more complex, a little bit more detailed than what we saw before. But you can search your keywords. That will search the resumes and the cover letters for those keywords. If we need that skill set within so many miles of a zip code, we can indicate that here. Maybe I only want to see candidates of a particular rating. We just want to see top prospects. Maybe we need somebody who's bilingual. We can search based on that. So this is customizable. You can add to these search criteria and be able to search on them. Let me go ahead and back some of this information out just to show you what that will look like. We can run a search and that will return those candidates to us. From there, we can review them. We can check off the box next to their names, maybe send them a quick email or send them a text message. Hey, we've got this opening. Are you still interested? One more thing to mention on the search, the more advanced search, you do have an option to save those criteria for the future. So you can come back to that. If that's something you're constantly recruiting for, you can come back and run that search. Let's go ahead and review a candidate. Let's come into George Blake's profile. Same idea as the job, we just want to follow these tabs across. We can see a summary of his information, where he's located, where he found your job, average feedback. Perhaps you want to give them a quick rating. A couple places we can see the resume here, or we'll see it again in just a second. Perhaps you have a cover letter you want to review, some questions that were answered by the candidate. Let's go ahead and hop over to our resume view so we can see here's George's resume. We have some arrow keys in the upper right that will allow you to go back and forth. So you're not having to come back to that main page. You can simply go from candidate to candidate. Answers tab will provide the answers that the candidate provided as they came into the system. Feedback would be feedback that your internal team is submitting. So we can either put some comments in here, give them a rating, submit that, or we can open up a questionnaire. So perhaps we have an interview feedback form set up. We can simply enter that feedback as we're interviewing that candidate, submit that, and you'll have that history. If you ever have a question why you hired this candidate and not another candidate, that will be provided. Backup information is right here. Last thing I want to mention is our history. So we can go ahead and see a history of everything that's happened with that candidate, any system changes. So we submitted some feedback, we set the stage, any notes you've taken. And I am using filters just to filter these out. Maybe any emails that have gone back and forth between you and the candidate. That should all be tracked in the history. If you're out of the office or you just need to come in as a refresher, what's happened, you can simply find that information here. Okay, now that we've reviewed a candidate, let's go ahead. We'll look at the table and the menu on the right so we can navigate just a little bit. So we can see we can also access the resume via the resume preview. Texting, you can send a text message. The cell phone icon will appear. Again, texting is an additional cost, but if you're using it, you can simply text your candidate. I have some custom fields here that I've created. Maybe we want to track the hire date. You can see the source of your candidate, when they were created. Here is that score. KO means knockout. So they answered a question that is taking them out of consideration. We can drill down into their profile. And then we can see, do you have a degree? They answered no. That is the question that's taking them out of consideration. Maybe you want to verify that that's accurate. It could be that they just misclicked. I have heard of that happening, so go ahead and take that with a grain of salt, but you can go ahead and review that for accuracy. I do need to open my filters up just a little bit. At the top, we can filter by different criteria so I can see my view change. And here are those scores. So candidates with a little bit higher score might be a better fit for you than a candidate with a lower score. Maybe focus your efforts on those candidates first and save yourself some time, speed up your recruiting process. We can see what stage our candidate is in. Maybe they're being interviewed, the manager is still reviewing them, they're being phone screened, and so forth. So that's going to allow you to see what's going on with your jobs. Where do you need to focus your efforts? Okay, let's talk about this menu on the right briefly. We can go ahead and add candidates to the system manually. So if somebody sends you a referral or you go out and you do a search, you can upload those candidates into the system. You can move your candidates around. You can add a job or set job. Add a job keeps them in job 1 and adds them to job 2. Set job will take them out of the original job and move them to the second job. Okay, we've talked about search. We can email our candidates or text them. For now, let's click on email. We can either choose a template or type directly into this box. We can send immediately or delay. Maybe if it's a rejection email, delay that by a day or two. We can attach documents, so maybe a benefit summary. We can include a questionnaire. So one trend we're seeing is to send the employment application later on in the process. You could find that here and attach that and have the candidate submit that later on in the process. Okay, we have an option here to create a task that is a general reminder, such as a phone screen, reference check, something of that sort. An event is very similar, but a little bit more detailed. It is time and date bound. So maybe we want to go ahead and schedule, for example, an interview. We can invite our candidate to select a time or select one on their behalf. If you're using Office 365 or Gmail, you can set it up so you can see your team's availability from within the system. We'll give that interview a start time and end time. We can include an invite to our candidate. We can assign that interview evaluation form for completion to our users that will be involved. So in this case, we're going to have a couple other individuals join that interview. That will send them a link to that form to be completed. They will get a reminder on their homepage. That event will be created, and they'll also receive an email so they can add it to their calendar. All right, back on the candidate screen, just a couple more things. We can add a quick note if we want to their profile. We can set those fields if we want to set the hire date. Once we know that, we can do that here. We can move them through the process. I do want to show you our workflow just a little bit. We'll touch on that briefly, but the workflow allows you to automate information upon a stage change. So for example, an email will go out at this point. If we don't want it to, we can delete it. We'll have a notification to users be sent out and so forth. Okay, from there, let's go ahead and go into a little bit of the system itself. We have an emails tab that will show you any emails that have gone between you and the candidate. So I opened up all those filters. We can see anything within the last 3 months or all dates. Any tasks or events that have been assigned as well, same idea. We can expand those filters to find those. Are they upcoming? And we can see what has been assigned in the system just so we can monitor that if we want to. Our library is pretty important for setting up your system. So any item you think you might use time and time again, for example, job templates as we are creating our job, maybe we're consistently recruiting for that skill set, we can create that here. And then we'll have that as we are creating that job, we can pull that in rather than having to constantly copy paste into the system. Questionnaires could be questions for your applicant, for your internal users, for even a third party. So for example, those accounting manager questionnaires, we needed to know some certain information from the candidate. The application for employment, same idea. Internal feedback, we've got a couple sample interview evaluation forms for you to use. You can create your own from scratch. Maybe you want to clone, make a copy, and make some edits, or you can outright edit the original. It's up to you, but you could create those. I had a phone screen questionnaire for myself, so I wouldn't forget to ask any questions as I was speaking with the candidate. So I'd populate that information, submit that, and that would track with the candidate information, so I could go back and reference that. As far as third parties, you could have, for example, a reference check. So that will allow you to either call your reference and populate that information, or you can set that up to automatically go out to your reference for them to complete electronically. So just to give you some ideas, that is pretty flexible. The questionnaires will allow you to set that up, gather some additional information in the system. Under messages, you can create either email or text templates. Let's go ahead and go into one. So for example, we can have an automated message go out once the candidate hits the new stage. Thank you for applying. Your application has been received and will be reviewed shortly. We will contact you if your qualifications fit our requirements. So drilling down, just a couple of things to mention here. We do have merge codes available for you to have information automatically populate. So dear candidate name, we can pull in their name automatically so you're not having to type that in. Thank you for applying for this job. We can pull in the job title. Okay, so you can check here, is that an email message or is that a text message? And again, we have the option to delay that. Tasks and events, let's say you have a standard process for maybe for an interview. So I've been in buildings where there's a receptionist, building where there's not, and you have to go to perhaps a phone on the wall, please contact so-and-so once you've arrived. So you can go ahead and populate, create templates for your interviews. And let's go ahead and talk about documents. You can create electronic offer letters. You'll have an option to upload a logo. To that, you'll have an option to create fields that you will populate. So your start date will be your pay rate, you will have so many days of time off, and so forth. You'll be able to create as many offer letters as you need. So you could have a full-time one, a part-time one, maybe somebody's driving on company time, somebody's not, are they being reimbursed for mileage, and so forth. So if you are interested in setting that up, please let us know. We have some resources we can send your way to help you with that. But it would be a case of inserting merge fields and creating those. Then you would go back to the candidate record, populate that information, and send it to them electronically. Coming over, we have our reports tab. I do like to show two here that are important to the recruiting process. So we have our source performance report. We can go ahead and do a custom date range on that, just so we can get some information to pull. Let's go ahead and run that so we can see where our candidates are coming from. Of our hired candidates, where did our hired candidates come from? So that's going to tell you what sources are working for you, bringing you quality applicants. Perhaps you should go ahead and continue to use those moving forward. Our time and stage for hired candidates is going to show you where your bottlenecks are in the process. Let's go ahead and run that so we can see how much time candidates are spending in each stage of the process. So we spent quite a bit of time. Of course, this is just a demo account in the phone screen stage. Maybe we want to look at tightening that up moving forward. So as you can see, we have a number of standard reports available for you. You can create your own. Same idea as everything else we've talked about. You can clone or you can make edits to those reports to pull the information that you are seeking. Should you need any help with that, our support team is really best to help, so we would encourage you to submit a ticket, perhaps provide a sample spreadsheet of what you need to pull, as much information as you can provide. That's going to help them help you with that request. And let's go ahead and talk about our setup just briefly. We will likely touch on these in more detail in a future webinar, but I do want to make sure you're aware they're out there. So we have the option to configure your account. That is an administrator level function. So they will, your administrator users will have access to configure the system. Perhaps we want to modify our application stages. So let's say a candidate does not show up for an interview, we can simply come in here and create a stage for that, no show for an interview. And then that stage will be available for you to use moving forward. Let's talk about application fields. Maybe you need to add to your source list. You can simply edit those options here. We're posting to Idealist, we're posting to State of California. You can simply add to your list here. And our workflow, let's go into that just briefly. When we moved candidate from stage to stage, you saw where certain actions were triggered. This is where we are setting that up to make everything run a little bit more efficiently for you. So for example, at the new stage, our candidate is going to receive an email. Thank you for applying. Our job owner has access to the candidate. They will receive a notification. You'll have an option to add a note. Coming down, once we hit manager review, now we are giving the hiring manager access to that candidate in addition to the job owner. So we don't want them to see candidates until they hit that particular stage in the process. So you can simply edit those stage by stage and build out your workflow. Last area to mention, again, under setup, under that head and shoulders icon, we have our job board, and I do want to mention a couple of things you can change here. So we have the resume is optional. Maybe you want to make that required. Maybe we want to have an applicant login so they can have a username and password so they can resume or edit an application. I mentioned that I had the application for employment auto attached, so this is where I set that. We have an option to parse contact information from the resume into those fields. We have that option for search filters. So when we saw the job board, we had some options for candidates to search based on location, maybe department. So if you have a long list of jobs, that can filter that list down for them. You can upload your logo, or we can create a custom job board skin for you. Please contact your account manager if you'd like to make any changes. And then you can change the messages on your job board as well. So we have some opening page instructions, some resume instructions, and so forth. Those can be easily modified here. And that is really start to finish the ApplicantStack system. So Recruit covers the recruiting process itself up to the point of offer letter. And then past that, our onboarding system would take over new hire forms and so forth. And we do have that upcoming webinar. So we would like to invite you to attend that as well. So with that, we'd like to go ahead and open up the floor for questions. And I think Ellen will be helping with those today. Again, those can be questions, anything ApplicantStack, Recruit, or Onboard. And we ask that you try to keep that so it might benefit the entire group. If it's a very specific question to your account, we will be happy to take that offline for you.
All right, Carol, I am here. Great job. So,
thank you.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot to ApplicantStack Recruit. It's very robust, and Carol has shared a lot of information with you. So we're ready to answer any questions that you have this afternoon. Once we drop off this webinar, if you're like, oh my gosh, what was Carol saying about how to schedule an event or searching the database, please submit a technical support ticket, and the ticket will be routed to the appropriate person and a response directed back to you. So we do have a couple questions, Carol, the first of which is there a cost for uploading a logo?
No, there's
so I'm thinking that's on the job board.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So uploading, it would look like our standard job board. My account has a custom skin, so I can't really show that to you, unfortunately, at the moment. But yeah, it would be our standard job board skin, and then you'll be able to upload a logo that is free of charge. So that was under. Let's go to Setup under the Head and Shoulders. Configure on the left. Excuse me, Job Boards on the left, and then Public Job Board Edit Settings. And the third section down has an option for you to upload that logo.
And so as Carol is showing, you simply choose the file, but the next field down, header return logo, if you input your company's website address in that second field, if a candidate is viewing your job board, they can click on your logo and it will return them to your website. So just a little bit of efficiency there as well. You got a thank you from Lisa on that one, Carol.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. Next question is how to reopen a job that's been closed or filled.
Okay, so let's go ahead and come back to our jobs table. If it's been closed or filled, it is more than likely in your inactive jobs. So you'll need to find that. So let's say we need to recruit for a practical nurse again. I might go ahead and clone that job and create a copy of that, and then coming back. So that would be a open active job at this point. We would need to open it up, make any changes. So if anything has changed since the last time you recruited, maybe you want to come in and edit that. You can modify accordingly, and then go ahead and post that copy that you had made. That's probably what I would recommend doing.
Yeah, as would I.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that way your reporting analytics are accurate for not only the first job, but also the newly cloned job that you'll launch as well. All right, next question, Carol, is we are seeing estimated salaries on Indeed for our jobs. How can we stop that?
Okay, so what we would recommend is, let me navigate a little bit. And if I can find Indeed here. So what you would want to do is this field here, you would want to indicate and you would want to populate that information. So what's happening if you don't post salary information, Indeed is making kind of a best guess or estimate on what the salary would be. So we would go ahead and encourage you to provide that information, and that will go out and you will have control of that. And the benefit of that is it's somewhat frustrating when you go to apply for a job only to find out it's not paying as much as you're used to or market rate. So we encourage you to be as transparent as you can with that information, so you don't start down the road in the process with that candidate only to find out, oh, we can't afford you. Then that's not the best use of anybody's time, the recruiter or the candidate. So certainly we would encourage you to populate that information and push that out to Indeed.
Right, so create a job field associated with the salary. Make it public. It'll go out to the Indeed feed. And Indeed, just to add a little bit, bases their salary estimates on the job title and the geographic location, which may or may not be accurate based on your particular job and corresponding salary. So when you actually input the salary range within ApplicantStack, complete this information that Carol is showing now, a template, your salary range, the accurate one, will post on Indeed. All right, next question, Carol, is when a candidate applies, does ApplicantStack have the ability to parse their resume into application form fields?
Okay, the system can parse basic contact information. So name, city, state, and so forth. So that was that job board setting that we had seen. Let's go back into our job board, our edit settings, and we have the parse resume. So that will parse the applicant's contact information. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to pull in, for example, experience. Sometimes it's named background, sometimes it's work experience, sometimes it's experience. So it's somewhat difficult for applicant tracking systems to pull everything in. So unfortunately, your candidate will have to do a little bit of populating of fields that may already be on the resume. But as a start, you can at least parse in that contact information. So hopefully that will be helpful.
Yep. At least the candidate's not inputting that contact information if it's not necessary.
Exactly.
All right. Next question. They're coming in now, Carol. How do I add disposition options?
Okay, that would be under our setup, under our configuration, and under application fields, we have those dispositions. So that is a drop down. You can change that. Edit our options and simply add an option to this list. We can reorder those options, click and drag. It's up to you. Do you want them alphabetical? You can simply reorder those as well.
I always like mine alphabetical, just my 2 cents. And then in addition, we have some customers that have 30 disposition options. And as Carol said, you can add as many options as you want. The reason why I'm adding a bit here is for compliance purposes and tracking purposes. You might want to disposition all candidates. So you can run a report on those reasons why your candidates fell out of the mix. So if you're audited, you have hardcore information as to why you chose a candidate over another candidate.
Exactly. Thank you, Ellen.
Sure. Next question. On hiring process summary report, if it's run for 30-day periods and one candidate has progressed from application complete to phone interview to reference check within that period, how will this data be reflected in the report? Let's take that one offline. I think this is a specific to Homestead question, Carol. So we'll ask Alan to follow up with Irene on that one.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Let's keep on going with other questions. This is onboarding, Carol. I have a 2-part form. How do I specify which fields are for my hire to complete and which fields are for me to complete?
Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the gridded boxes here. That is how we toggle between those two systems. And that is a form question. So let's navigate to our library. Let's go to forms. And let's just go ahead and come in to edit our I-9. And the question was it a specific field or was it the form itself?
I'm interpreting the question as they haven't done it yet, but they know it's a 2-part form. It's in PDF format. They'll upload it into onboarding.
Okay.
So it would be higher than employer, I think, and then just specifying which field on the form is to be completed by the hire or the employer.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start with what type of form is it? Is it hire only, employer only, higher than employer? So that would be a good example of the I-9. So the hire completes their section, then the employer comes in and completes their section, and then the opposite, employer then hire. And let's come down, let's find some fields. And then we can go ahead and take a look at the, for example, the name field. Is that required? Does it have any validation associated with it? Do we want to autofill it? Do we already know that information? And then here we can designate, is that a hire or is that an employer? Okay, so hopefully that answers that question.
I think it does. Thank you, Carol. Next question. With basic texting, how am I notified when the recipient replies?
Okay, so this little icon here in the upper right will turn red to let you know that you have a new message. And unfortunately, we're not able to demonstrate a whole lot since it's a demo account. But you could go ahead and come in. You could see what messages those are, history. I believe you can select between a certain hire you're communicating with, but you can see that history here. So this notification would turn red. I believe there's an option in the system setup on the back end. Please touch base with our support team to receive an email notification as well, but please check with support on that. I'm not 100% sure. Alan, do you know?
I think I do know. So as Carol's saying, you do need to turn on in your user profile and in your system settings that you want texting notifications. And so Carol, if you go to, go to Home if you would please, and update settings.
Oh, okay, update settings.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's edit.
Okay, and so this is a demo account. So it does not have, this is where you would turn on text notifications for a system-wide setting so that all ApplicantStack users have the ability to get an email when an individual responds to a text. So it has to be done in the system setting. And then Carol, if you would go to user profile, and again, since this is a demo account, we can't show you really accurately, but it's these two areas where you would have to ensure that you have, in this case, texting notification turned on, and it would be under that user information section, whereas you see right now, email notifications are turned on. You have another setting in every user profile to have texting notifications turned on. So kind of a lengthy response to your question, but there is a way. And we can review that with you, Irene, if you want to go ahead and submit a ticket. Again, it will be routed to the appropriate person for a response. All right. Next question. You had demoed merge codes in an email.
Mm-hmm.
Can you show that to me again, please?
Sure thing.
So merge codes in an email. Sorry, Carol.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a method of tailoring your email so that they're unique, and that shows personalization, which is always good for your employer brand. So great question.
Yeah, so under the library, that was under messages. And we have just a couple sample ones here, but let's go ahead and just create a new template. And then we could say, hello, candidate. We want that to populate with their name. So into the appropriate part, we want to pull in the name. We can go ahead and pull in a number of different fields here. So anything available here as and I believe I'm on onboard, so it looks a little different than what we saw earlier. But we could say, what is your hire date? We welcome you on board. We'd like to see you on this date. So you can populate that. So any merge codes that you see here, you can pull in and send that to your hire or candidate. Again, we have the option to delay that or send immediately. So that is where you would have that automatically populated.
All right. Thank you, Carol. And I do not see any more questions coming in. It's 7 minutes before the hour. So our timing is good. Here's last call for questions. Carol, I think we're ready to close it down.
We are. Okay. So thank you, everyone, for joining today. As we mentioned, back on the homepage, we have an announcement section. We'd love to see you on our upcoming AMAs and webinars. But thanks for joining today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Everyone, take care.
Thanks, Carol.
Bye-bye.